And I'm going to pivot to police reform and criminal justice because if nothing else, the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and other similar events should have been a catalyst to do some substantial reforms in the Congress. And you stepped up very early with the Justice for Breonna Taylor Act, and you've been talking about over-militarization of police. I think you've introduced legislation on that as well.
For years, yeah.
For years, and you've been a consistent voice since you got to the Senate. Mike Lee has been a consistent voice, and you have had bipartisan cooperation with a number of people. But for all of the heat and all of the protests, and now a lot of the violence that it's devolved into, there's been no movement on criminal justice or police reform.
And I hate to be a bearer of partisan news, but this is the Democrat side that didn't want any. So, for example, you can easily look at the Republican proposal and say this is weak sauce, there isn't much there. And that's a valid criticism. But they just voted no to even get on the bill. I probably wouldn't have voted for the Republican bill because there were some things I objected to, but I voted to get on the bill, and then let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Now, the Republican leadership often isn't, completely honest about it. To tell you the truth, they often don't allow amendments. But had they not allowed any of my amendments or the Democrat amendments, then you vote to get off it and you blame the Republicans, and actually got a solid case then. You blame the Republicans for not allowing amendments. I think there would have been significant pressure on the Republicans to allow amendments, and several of those amendments would have passed. Like the no-knock raid bill, getting rid of no-knock raids, I think would have passed. I think militarization of getting rid of militarization, like bayonets for the police and tanks and all this stuff, I think that would have passed also. And in the end, Democrats said, every one of them, they all voted together and said, we're not getting on the bill. We'll campaign on it in November. And so there's a certain cockiness. They think they're going to defeat Trump, and then they also think they're going to take the Senate. They might. But and then they can set the agenda if they get rid of the filibuster, which they might do that also. But for right now, they're not in a talking mood. Same's going on with like this more COVID bailout money. The Democrats want more money. The Republicans want more money. The only dispute between these two groups of big government people is how much.
Yeah.
But right now the Democrats are holding off doing anything because I think they would like to see maybe there's campaign on Republicans won't give us enough free money.
Sure. And I remember that dynamic when I was working on criminal justice reform, and there was this transpartisan coalition going into the 2016 election. Some of my progressive friends would openly say, we don't want to give a Republican a win, particularly on this issue. This is our issue.
Right.
And I guess the assumption was that Hillary Clinton would win, but it's kind of a wicked tribalism that prevents us from actually fixing really big problems.
And sometimes we get beyond it. We did one small first step, the first step back on criminal justice reform, and it was good. It was somewhat weak sauce, but it did some good things, and we got that done under President Trump, with a Republican Senate and a Democrat House. But for the 8 years of Obama, for the 6 out of the 8 that I was here, I would go to the White House. I was willing to meet and have my picture taken with President Obama, who I didn't agree with on a lot, to be for criminal justice reform, but we never got it done. And, to President Trump's credit, we actually did get it done.